My name is Eleanor, 67 years old, and I've spent my entire life putting my daughter Rebecca first. Every sacrifice, every late night, every extra shift, all for her happiness. Her wedding day should have been my proudest moment as a mother. Instead, it became the day my own flesh and blood publicly accused me of theft and disowned me. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife ever could. Yet sometimes the universe has its own way of revealing truth. Before I share what happened, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how justice finally prevailed. Becoming a mother at 23 wasn't in my plans, but from the moment I held Rebecca in my arms, she became my entire world. Her father, Richard, walked out when she was just 2 years old, claiming he wasn't ready for responsibility. Just like that, I became both mother and father to my little girl. Those early years weren't easy. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day and bookkeeping at night, while taking classes to earn my accounting degree. Most nights, I'd crawl into bed at midnight only to be up at 5 to start all over again. But whenever Rebecca would wrap her tiny arms around my neck and say, "I love you, Mommy," every hardship seemed worth it. I remember skipping meals so Rebecca could have new shoes for school. I remember selling my grandmother's antique brooch to pay for her braces. I remember postponing my own dreams time and again because hers mattered more. Not once did I resent these sacrifices. They were made with love, without hesitation. After finishing my degree, I secured a position at Williams' accounting firm where I worked for 30 years until retirement. It wasn't glamorous, but it provided stability and allowed me to give Rebecca the opportunities one never had. Private piano lessons, summer camps, college prep courses, I made sure she had it all. Rebecca and I shared everything. She'd curl up beside me on our worn sofa, telling me about school crushes and friendship dramas. We had movie nights every Friday with homemade popcorn and hot chocolate. When she was accepted to Cornell University on a partial scholarship, we danced around the kitchen in our pajamas. I took out a second mortgage on our modest home to cover the remaining tuition. Seeing her walk across that graduation stage made every penny worth it. After college, Rebecca moved to New York City to work for a prestigious marketing firm. She'd call me every Sunday without fail, filling me in on her life in the big city. Then came the Sunday she called bubbling with excitement about meeting someone special, Thomas Whitfield. "Mom, he's perfect," she gushed. "He's kind and smart and successful." Thomas came from old money, very old money. His family owned a chain of luxury hotels across the East Coast. When Rebecca brought him home to meet me 6 months later, I noticed how his eyes scanned my humble living room, how his smile tightened when he saw the collection of thrift store figurines I'd gathered over the years. Still, he was polite, and Rebecca was happier than I'd ever seen her. "He treats me like a princess, Mom," she told me after he'd left. "I think he might be the one." Sure enough, 3 months later, Thomas proposed with a diamond ring that probably cost more than my entire house. Rebecca was ecstatic, and I tried to share her joy. But something had begun to change in my daughter. Subtle at first, a canceled visit here, a shortened phone call there. Then not so subtle. "Thomas thinks I should change my hairstyle to something more sophisticated," she mentioned once. "Thomas says my wardrobe could use an upgrade. Thomas thinks my accent makes me sound uneducated." With each statement I felt her slipping away, molding herself to fit into Thomas's world. The wedding planning began immediately. Thomas's mother, Victoria Whitfield, took charge, making it clear my input wasn't needed. When I suggested holding the reception at the lakeside park where Rebecca had loved feeding ducks as a child, Victoria laughed. "My dear, this isn't a backyard barbecue. We're thinking the plaza." The budget for flowers alone was more than I made in a year. When I tentatively asked about costs, Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Eleanor, please don't concern yourself with financial matters. The Whitfields will handle everything." I was being erased from my own daughter's wedding. Still, I smiled and nodded, reminding myself this was Rebecca's special day, not mine. Shopping for my mother-of-the-bride dress became another exercise in humiliation. Victoria insisted on accompanying us, critiquing every dress I tried on. Too bright. Too matronly. Good heavens, not that pattern. I finally settled on a simple navy blue gown that Victoria deemed acceptable, I suppose. For Rebecca's wedding gift, I had something special planned. My grandmother's diamond bracelet, the one family heirloom I hadn't sold during hard times. It wasn't extravagant by Whitfield standards, but it carried generations of love. I had it professionally cleaned and placed in a velvet box with a handwritten note expressing my endless love for my daughter. The rehearsal dinner, held at an exclusive restaurant I could never afford, set the tone for what was to come. I was seated at a table far from Rebecca, surrounded by distant relatives of the Whitfields who barely acknowledged my presence. Thomas's father gave a toast, thanking everyone who had contributed to making Thomas and Rebecca the people they are today, without once mentioning my name. That night, alone in my hotel room, I cried for the first time since the engagement. Something told me I was losing my daughter forever, but I pushed the thought away. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would be perfect. I woke before sunrise on Rebecca's wedding day, my heart full of conflicting emotions. Outside my hotel window, the early morning light painted Manhattan in gentle pinks and golds. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, flipping through photos of Rebecca on my phone. Rebecca taking her first steps, Rebecca in her kindergarten play, Rebecca at her high school graduation. Where had the time gone? The wedding was scheduled for 4 p.m. at St. Patrick's Cathedral, with the reception to follow at the Plaza Hotel. By 9 my hair and makeup artist arrived, arranged by Victoria, who had deemed my usual look too simple for such an occasion. The woman transformed me into someone I barely recognized, with elaborate upswept hair and makeup that felt like a mask on my face. My driver, another Whitfield arrangement, delivered me to the bridal suite at the cathedral by noon. The massive room was buzzing with activity. Bridesmaids in silk robes sipped champagne while hairstylists and makeup artists fluttered around them. In the center of it all sat Rebecca, more beautiful than I had ever seen her. "Mom," she called when she spotted me. "You're here." For a moment, she was my little girl again. I hurried over and took her hands in mine. "You look stunning, sweetheart," I said, fighting back tears. "Don't you dare cry and ruin your makeup." Victoria's voice cut through our moment as she entered the room. "Rebecca, the photographer wants some shots of you with the bridesmaids." Just like that, I was sidelined again. I found a quiet corner and watched as everyone else played their part in Rebecca's special day. One of the bridesmaids, Stephanie, took pity on me and brought over a glass of champagne. "First time meeting the mother-in-law?" she asked sympathetically. "Is it that obvious?" "Victoria can be intense," Stephanie said diplomatically. "But she means well." I wasn't so sure about that. Throughout the morning, Victoria made pointed comments within my earshot. Thank goodness we handled the planning. Can you imagine what this would have looked like otherwise? And later, to one of her friends, "Rebecca's done well for herself, considering her background." I swallowed my pride and focused on what mattered. Rebecca was happy. Before she left for the cathedral nave, I managed to steal a private moment with her. "I am so proud of you," I whispered, straightening her veil. "All I've ever wanted was your happiness." Rebecca's eyes softened. "I know, Mom. I love you." I didn't give her my gift then, wanting to save it for a special moment at the reception. The ceremony was breathtaking. As Rebecca glided down the aisle on the arm of Thomas's father, we had agreed he would give her away since her own father was absent. I couldn't stop the tears. My little girl, all grown up, beginning her own family. When she and Thomas exchanged vows, the love between them seemed palpable. Whatever my misgivings about his family, I couldn't deny they looked perfect together. The reception at the plaza was like something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, thousands of white roses, an orchestra playing as guests entered the ballroom. I was seated at a table near the front but not at the main family table. Another subtle reminder of my place in this new hierarchy. As I mingled during the cocktail hour, I overheard snippets of conversation. "That's the mother? I expected someone more refined. Thomas says she worked as a waitress. Can you imagine?" I kept my head high and my smile fixed, though each word stung. During dinner, I watched Rebecca from afar, radiant in her happiness. After the main course, I noticed she wasn't wearing the family bracelet I had given her earlier that day. Perhaps she had taken it off for safekeeping? I made a mental note to ask her about it when I had the chance. The father-daughter dance brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thomas's father waltzed Rebecca around the floor with practiced ease, something I could never have taught her. I thought of all the school dances I'd helped her prepare for, teaching her to move in our small living room to music from our old radio. Now she was gliding across marble floors to the sound of a live orchestra. After the dance, I approached Rebecca at the head table. "Sweetheart, I noticed you're not wearing the bracelet. Did you put it somewhere safe?" She looked momentarily confused. "Oh, the bracelet. I set it aside for later. It didn't quite match my dress." Her response felt dismissive, but I nodded understanding. "Of course. It's your day. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't lost." "It's fine, Mom," she said, already turning her attention to a guest calling her name. "We'll talk later." As the night progressed, I found a few moments of joy despite feeling out of place. I danced with some of Rebecca's college friends who made an effort to include me. I chatted with the few relatives I had been able to invite. For a brief time, I allowed myself to believe everything would be all right. If only I had known what was coming. Around 9 o'clock, my feet aching from unaccustomed heels, I decided to retrieve my comfortable flats from the bridal suite. The hallway outside the ballroom was blissfully quiet after the noise of the reception. 2 security guards, hired by the Whitfields, nodded politely as I passed. The bridal suite was unlocked, which surprised me. I expected Rebecca would have secured the room containing her personal belongings. When I entered, I was shocked to find the room in disarray. Garment bags were unzipped, makeup scattered across the vanity, and several gift boxes had been opened on the side table. "Hello," I called, thinking perhaps one of the bridesmaids was there. No answer. My first thought was that someone had broken in. I hurried to check Rebecca's things, worried that something valuable had been stolen. Her wedding dress bag was still zipped and hanging properly. Her makeup case seemed undisturbed, but the gift table definitely looked tampered with. Boxes open, tissue paper unfolded. I spotted my purse on a chair where I'd left it earlier and opened it to check if my wallet was still there. It was, but something else caught my eye, something that hadn't been there before. My grandmother's diamond bracelet, the one I'd given Rebecca, was nestled inside my purse. Confusion washed over me. Had Rebecca put it there for safekeeping? But why wouldn't she have mentioned that when I asked about it? I took the bracelet out, intending to return it to Rebecca's jewelry case, when the door burst open. Rebecca stood there, her face flushed with anger. Behind her stood Thomas, his expression cold, and behind him, 2 security guards and Victoria Whitfield, whose face wore a look of smug satisfaction. "I knew it," Rebecca shouted, pointing at the bracelet in my hand. "I can't believe you would steal from me on my wedding day." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "What?"
Rebecca, no.
"I found this in my purse just now." "I didn't put it there." "Save it, Eleanor," Thomas cut in. "We've had reports of missing gifts. That's why security has been checking the rooms." I looked from face to face, bewildered. "I just came to get my shoes. The room was already like this when I arrived. Someone's been through the gifts." "And that someone was you," Victoria said coldly. "Really, Eleanor, how desperate for money are you?" By now, a small crowd had gathered in the hallway, drawn by the commotion. I could see guests peering in, whispering behind their hands. My face burned with humiliation. "Rebecca," I pleaded, "you know I would never steal from you. I gave you this bracelet as a gift. It's been in our family for generations." Rebecca's eyes were hard, unrecognizable. "Save your lies. We have wedding gifts missing too. Were those family heirlooms as well?" One of the security guards stepped forward. "Ma'am, I need to check your purse." Too shocked to protest, I handed it over. The guard dumped the contents onto a nearby table. Along with my wallet, keys, and phone, out tumbled a pair of pearl earrings I had never seen before and an envelope that appeared to contain cash. Gasps echoed through the gathering crowd. I stared at the items in disbelief. "Those aren't mine. I don't know how they got there." Rebecca turned to the guests who had now filled the doorway. "I'm so sorry everyone had to witness this," she announced, her voice carrying. Apparently my mother thought my wedding was a shopping opportunity. The public humiliation was unbearable. I reached for Rebecca's arm. "Please let me explain." She jerked away from me, her eyes flashing with rage. "Get out," she hissed. "Get out of my wedding. Get out of my life. You're not family anymore." The words cut through me like glass. My daughter, my only child, the person I had centered my entire life around, was disowning me in front of a room full of strangers. For a moment I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. From the corner of my eye, I caught Victoria's expression, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth as she placed a comforting arm around Rebecca's shoulders. And in that moment I knew. This had been planned. I was being set up. But proving it now, in this moment, was impossible. The damage was done. Dozens of eyes stared at me with judgment and disgust. I could feel their condemnation like a physical weight. The security guards moved toward me, clearly intending to escort me out. But before they could touch me, I straightened my spine and lifted my chin. "I did not take these things," I said, my voice remarkably steady despite the earthquake happening in my heart. "Someday you'll learn the truth, Rebecca. I hope it won't be too late." I gathered my actual belongings, leaving the planted items on the table. With as much dignity as I could muster, I walked past the security guards, past the whispering guests, past my daughter who couldn't even look me in the eye. The walk through the reception hall was the longest of my life. Curious eyes followed me. Conversations stopped as I passed. Someone, one of Thomas's cousins, I think, loudly remarked, "I always knew she didn't belong here." Outside, the night air hit my heated face. The doorman, unaware of what had transpired, called me a taxi. As I slid into the back seat and gave the driver my address, the tears finally came. Not delicate, ladle-like tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that left me gasping for breath. "You okay, lady?" the driver asked, concern in his voice. "No," I answered truthfully. "But I will be." The taxi pulled away from the plaza, from the daughter who no longer wanted me, from the life I had known. As the lights of Manhattan blurred through my tears, I felt something inside me break apart and begin to reassemble in a new configuration. Heartbreak, yes, but something else too. Determination. By the time I arrived home, the tears had subsided, replaced by a hollow numbness. I paid the taxi driver and stood for a moment on the sidewalk, staring at my modest house. The porch light I'd left on cast a warm glow, a cruel contrast to the cold emptiness I felt inside. Inside, I didn't bother turning on the lights. I sank onto the living room couch, still wearing my navy blue gown, and sat in darkness broken only by the streetlight filtering through the curtains. The silence was deafening. The events at the wedding played on repeat in my mind. Rebecca's face, contorted with anger and disgust. Thomas's cold, calculated stare. Victoria's satisfied smirk. The humiliation of being accused, of having my purse searched, of being escorted out while wedding guests whispered and stared. Why? I whispered into the darkness. Why would she believe I would steal from her? Had I failed as a mother somewhere along the way? Had I not taught her enough about trust, about family loyalty? Or had the Whitfield's influence been so strong that it had erased everything we had shared? I thought back through our relationship, searching for signs I might have missed. Had there been moments when Rebecca showed this capacity for cruelty? This willingness to believe the worst about me? Nothing came to mind. Until she met Thomas, Rebecca had been loving, appreciative, kind. Around midnight, I finally changed out of my gown, hanging it carefully in the closet though I knew I'd never wear it again. I made a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. No calls, no texts. Not from Rebecca, not from anyone at the wedding. It was as if I had ceased to exist the moment I walked out of the plaza. Unable to bear the solitude any longer, I called my younger sister, Judith, who lived in New Jersey. Despite the late hour, she answered on the second ring. "Eleanor? What's wrong? Shouldn't you be at the reception?" My voice broke as I tried to explain. "Judy, something terrible happened." I poured out the whole story, the accusation, the planted evidence, the public humiliation, Rebecca's cruel words. Judith listened without interrupting, gasping occasionally in disbelief. "I'm coming over," she said when I finished. "You shouldn't be alone right now. It's too late, you don't have to. I'm already getting dressed. I'll be there in an hour." True to her word, Judith arrived just after 1 in the morning. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a fierce hug. For the second time that night, I broke down completely, sobbing against my sister's shoulder like a child. Judith made fresh tea and sat with me at the kitchen table. "This stinks of sabotage," she said bluntly. "Victoria Whitfield has been trying to push you out from day one." "But why would Rebecca believe her over me?" I asked, the question that had been tormenting me for hours. Judith sighed. "From what you've told me, Thomas and his family have been working on Rebecca for months, making her question her background, her choices, even her relationship with you. They've been isolating her, making her dependent on their approval." I hadn't thought of it that way before, but Judith's words made a terrible kind of sense. It was like she became a different person around them, I admitted. Always second-guessing herself, trying to fit their mold. "Classic manipulation tactics," Judith said grimly. "The question is, what are you going to do now?" "What can I do?" Rebecca made her choice clear.
No, Eleanor.
"Someone made that choice for her by setting you up." Judith leaned forward intently. "Think about it. Who had access to the bridal suite? Who could have planted those items in your purse?" My mind raced, considering possibilities. The room was unlocked when I got there. Anyone could have gone in. But not everyone would have known which purse was yours, or that you'd be coming back for it. Judith tapped her fingers on the table thoughtfully. "The plaza has security cameras, doesn't it? All those fancy hotels do." Hope flickered briefly. "You think there might be footage? It's worth finding out. If someone went into that room before you and planted evidence, there might be proof." We discussed the possibility late into the night. Part of me wanted to fight back to clear my name. Another part wondered if it was worth it. Even if I proved my innocence, the damage to my relationship with Rebecca might be irreparable. Around 3 in the morning, Judith insisted I try to sleep. "We'll figure this out tomorrow," she promised. "You're not alone in this." After she settled into the guest room, I wandered into Rebecca's old bedroom, preserved almost exactly as she'd left it for college 15 years ago. Trophies lined the bookshelf. Photos of high school friends were tucked into the mirror frame. Her childhood teddy bear, Mr. Buttons, sat on the pillow. I picked up the worn bear, remembering how Rebecca couldn't sleep without it until she was almost 10. The countless times I'd had to turn the car around because we'd forgotten Mr. Buttons at home. The night she had a high fever, and I made Mr. Buttons talk to distract her while I administered medicine. Clutching the teddy bear to my chest, I sank onto Rebecca's bed. The pain of her betrayal went deeper than any physical wound. For 44 years she had been my reason for everything, for working hard, for sacrificing, for getting up each morning. Now she was gone, believing the worst of me, calling me a thief, telling me I wasn't family anymore. Yet despite everything, I couldn't hate her. I was angry, hurt beyond measure. But the maternal instinct to protect was still there. If Victoria had manipulated this situation, then Rebecca was a victim too, in a different way. As dawn broke, I made a decision. I would fight, not just for my reputation but for my daughter. I would show her the truth, even if it meant confronting the powerful Whitfield family. I wouldn't sink away in shame for a crime I didn't commit. With Mr. Button still clutched in my arms, I finally drifted into an exhausted sleep. A persistent pounding jerked me awake. Disoriented, I sat up in Rebecca's bed. Mr. Buttons tumbling from my arms. Sunlight streamed through the blinds. I had slept later than intended. The pounding continued. "Someone's at the door," Judith called from the hallway. "I'll get it." I glanced at the clock. 9:17 a.m. Who would be visiting so early the morning after the wedding? A cold fear gripped me. Had something happened to Rebecca? I hurried downstairs, still wearing yesterday's clothes, to find Judith speaking with a tall man in a dark suit in the entryway. "Eleanor Wilson?" he asked when he saw me. "Yes, that's me." He extended his hand. "Jason Mitchell, head of security at the Plaza Hotel. May I come in? There's been a development regarding last night's incident." My heart hammered in my chest as I led him to the living room. Had more items been reported missing? Was I about to be accused of further theft, perhaps even arrested? Jason declined my offer of coffee and got straight to the point. "Mrs. Wilson, I owe you an apology on behalf of the Plaza. There's been a serious misunderstanding." I stared at him, uncomprehending. "After you left last night, We conducted a standard review of our security footage, which is protocol for any reported theft on the premises. He opened a leather portfolio he was carrying. What we discovered was troubling. Jason placed several printed screenshots on my coffee table. They showed the hallway outside the bridal suite, time-stamped 8:37 p.m., about 20 minutes before I had gone to retrieve my shoes. This is Victoria Whitfield entering the bridal suite, he explained, pointing to a clear image of Thomas's mother slipping into the room, looking furtively over her shoulder. My breath caught. Judith moved closer, examining the photos. And here, Jason continued, flipping to another image time-stamped 8:52 p.m., is Mrs. Whitfield leaving the room. The next series of photos showed me entering the suite at 9:08 p.m., then the commotion that followed when Rebecca and the others arrived. Mrs. Wilson, our footage clearly shows Mrs. Whitfield spent 15 minutes alone in that room before you arrived. When questioned, she claimed she was tidying up, but the room was left in disarray, and you were accused of theft minutes later. She planted the evidence, Judith said, her voice tight with anger. Jason nodded grimly. It appears so. We have additional footage from inside the suite itself. He produced a small tablet and played a video that showed Victoria entering the room, methodically opening gift boxes, and then, most damning of all, taking the diamond bracelet from Rebecca's jewelry case and placing it, along with other items, into my purse. The relief that flooded through me was so intense I had to sit down. Tears sprang to my eyes, not of sadness this time but vindication. We've already informed Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield of our findings, Jason continued. And your daughter and her husband have been notified as well. How did they react? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jason hesitated. Mrs. Whitfield denied everything despite the evidence. Mr. Whitfield Sr. backed his wife's denials. As for your daughter, he paused. She was extremely distressed. She asked for your address, which is why I'm here. I wanted to speak with you first, to apologize and to provide you with copies of this evidence. My emotions were a tangled mess. Relief at being exonerated. Lingering hurt from Rebecca's willingness to believe the worst of me. Anger at Victoria's deliberate cruelty. And underneath it all, a deep sadness that what should have been a joyous occasion had been poisoned forever. Thank you for bringing this to me, I said finally. After Jason left, Judith and I sat in stunned silence, processing what we'd learned. That woman deliberately set you up, Judith said eventually, her voice vibrating with anger. She humiliated you in front of everyone. She should be ashamed. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The screen showed Rebecca's name. I stared at it, suddenly uncertain. Part of me wanted to reject the call, to make her feel a fraction of the pain I had experienced. But another part, the mother part, couldn't do it. I answered. Hello. Mom. Rebecca's voice was raw, as if she'd been crying for hours. Mom, can I come over? Please. I need to see you. The vulnerability in her voice tugged at my heart despite everything. Yes, I said simply. I'll be there in 30 minutes. After hanging up, I went upstairs to shower and change. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were swollen from crying, new lines seemed to have appeared overnight, and my hair, so carefully styled for the wedding, was a disheveled mess. I dressed in comfortable clothes, jeans and a soft sweater, and tried to prepare myself emotionally for seeing Rebecca. What would I say to her? How could we ever move past this? Rebecca arrived exactly 30 minutes later. When I opened the door, the sight of her broke my heart anew. Still in yesterday's clothes, her wedding makeup smeared, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. She looked like a lost child. Mom, she whispered, then crumpled into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Despite my resolution to stay strong, I found myself holding her, stroking her hair as I had when she was small. Come inside, I said gently. Judith tactfully excused herself to go pick up some groceries, giving us privacy. I led Rebecca to the living room couch, where she continued to cry, her body shaking with the force of her sobs. When she finally calmed enough to speak, her words tumbled out in a rush. I saw the security footage. I saw what Victoria did. I can't believe that I accused you. That I said those terrible things to you. How can you ever forgive me? The question hung in the air between us. Could I forgive her? The wound was still so fresh, the betrayal so deep. Why did you believe her over me? I asked the question that had tormented me all night. Rebecca's face crumpled again. They've all been, poisoning me against you for months. Little comments about your background, your job, your clothes. Making me feel like I had to choose between you and fitting into their world. And Thomas kept saying I needed to elevate myself, leave my old life behind. She wiped her eyes. When the accusation happened, it was like I was brainwashed. I couldn't think clearly. I just reacted the way they expected me to. Hearing her acknowledge the manipulation made some of my anger dissipate. Rebecca had been a victim too, in her own way. When the security manager showed us the footage this morning, she continued, Thomas defended his mother. He said she was just trying to protect their family reputation, that you would have embarrassed us eventually anyway. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. That's when I saw him clearly for the first time. The real him. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. What happened then? I told him he had to choose, stand with me against what his mother did or stand with her. He chose her. Rebecca's voice broke. The marriage lasted less than 24 hours. The revelation stunned me. You left him. She nodded miserably. I couldn't stay after seeing who he really is. After what they did to you, what I did to you. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, Mom. What I did was unforgivable. But please know how deeply, deeply sorry I am. In that moment, looking at my broken daughter, I knew that despite everything, my love for her remained unchanged. Damaged, yes. In need of repair, absolutely. But still there, still the foundation of my life. It will take time, I said honestly. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend overnight. But you're my daughter, Rebecca. Nothing will ever change that. Fresh tears flowed, but these seemed different, tears of relief, perhaps even hope. We had a long road ahead, but we had taken the first step. Rebecca spent that night in her childhood bedroom. In the morning, over coffee at the kitchen table, she made an unexpected suggestion. I think we should confront them, she said, her voice stronger than it had been yesterday. Victoria and Thomas. I want them to admit what they did to you. I hesitated. Is that really necessary? We know the truth now. It's not about us knowing, Rebecca insisted. It's about them acknowledging what they did. About facing consequences for their actions. She reached across the table to take my hand. Mom, they publicly humiliated you. They tried to destroy your reputation and our relationship. If we let that stand, they'll do the same to someone else. She had a point. Victoria's actions had been deliberate and malicious. And while I had no desire to see the Whitfields again, part of me did want them to face what they had done. There's something else, Rebecca added quietly. I left all my things at their house. My clothes, my passport, everything. I need to get them back. That settled it. I couldn't let Rebecca face them alone. When do you want to go? I asked. Now. Before I lose my nerve. The drive to the Whitfields' mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut took just over an hour. With each mile, my anxiety grew. What would we say? How would they react? Would this confrontation heal anything or just create more pain? Rebecca directed me through iron gates and up a winding driveway to a house that looked like it belonged in a historical film. Georgian style, with perfect symmetry and imposing columns. It screamed old money and privilege. Intimidating, isn't it? Rebecca said, noting my expression. That's by design. The Whitfields use their wealth to make others feel small. We parked in the circular driveway next to several luxury cars. Before we could even ring the bell, the massive front door swung open. Thomas stood there, his expression a mixture of relief and wariness. Becca, he said, ignoring me completely. Thank God. I've been calling you all night. I need to get my things, Rebecca replied, her voice cool. And we need to talk to your mother. Thomas's face hardened. There's nothing to discuss. This has all been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I couldn't help interjecting. Your mother deliberately planted stolen items in my purse and accused me of theft in front of 200 people. There's security footage, Thomas. He finally looked at me, his gaze dismissive. Mrs. Wilson, with all due respect, you've caused enough trouble. I think it would be best if you left and let Rebecca and me sort this out privately. Rebecca stiffened beside me. I'm not here to sort anything out with you, Thomas. I'm here to get my belongings and to hear your mother admit what she did. Before Thomas could respond, Victoria appeared in the hallway behind him. I heard voices, she said, then froze when she saw us. What are they doing here? They've come for Rebecca's things, Thomas explained, and apparently to make accusations. Not accusations, Rebecca corrected. Facts. Facts backed by video evidence. Victoria's perfectly made-up face betrayed no emotion. I don't know what you think you saw, but I assure you you're mistaken. Mom, stop. Thomas's father, Harold, joined the group in the entryway. The hotel security showed us the footage. It's quite clear what happened. Victoria turned on her husband. Whose side are you on? The side of truth, Harold replied, looking tired. This has gone far enough. An uncomfortable silence fell. Finally, Thomas stepped back.
Come in.
Let's not do this on the doorstep. We followed them into an opulent living room that could have been featured in Architectural Digest. Crystal chandeliers, antique furniture, oil paintings in gilded frames. It was beautiful but cold, much like the Whitfields themselves. I'll help you pack your things later, Thomas said to Rebecca. First, let's clear the air. There's nothing to clear, Victoria snapped. I did what any mother would do to protect her son from making a terrible mistake. The blunt admission stunned us all into silence. A mistake? Rebecca finally managed. Is that what you think I am?
Victoria sighed dramatically.
Rebecca, you're a lovely girl, but let's be honest. You don't belong in our world. Your background, your family. She glanced dismissively at me. It was only a matter of time before something embarrassing happened. I simply accelerated the inevitable. By framing my mother for theft? Rebecca's voice rose incredulously. I did what I had to do, Victoria insisted. Thomas deserves someone from our social circle, someone who understands our traditions, our responsibilities. Thomas, to my surprise, looked appalled. Mother, I love Rebecca. Her background doesn't matter to me. It should, Victoria snapped. Marriage isn't just about love. It's about suitable matches, about preserving what we've built for generations. Harold placed a restraining hand on his wife's arm. Victoria, that's enough. What you did was not only cruel but potentially criminal. The hotel could press charges for the disruption you caused. Victoria shrugged off his hand. Don't be dramatic, Harold. No one would dare press charges against us. Throughout this exchange, I had remained silent, watching the family dynamics play out. Now I stepped forward, meeting Victoria's cold gaze directly. What you did wasn't just an attack on me, I said quietly. It was an attack on your son's happiness. You were willing to destroy his marriage before it even began. All to maintain some outdated notion of social standing. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You have no idea what it takes to maintain a family like ours. The sacrifices required. No, I agreed. But I do know what it means to love a child. To want their happiness above all else. That's something you clearly don't understand. For the first time, Victoria seemed at a loss for words. Rebecca moved to stand beside me, our shoulders touching in a silent show of solidarity. Thomas, she said, her voice steady, I came here today hoping you would stand up to your mother, that you would show me our marriage meant more to you than family politics. She slipped her wedding ring from her finger and placed it on the coffee table. But I see now that was naive. Thomas stared at the ring, then at Rebecca. You can't be serious. You're ending our marriage because of my mother's actions. I'm ending it because of your reaction to them, Rebecca corrected. You defended her. You chose her over me. Becca, please. Thomas's voice took on a pleading tone. We can work this out. Go to counseling, take some time apart if needed. There's nothing to work out, Rebecca said firmly. I won't be part of a family that treats people the way your mother treated mine. She turned to Victoria. And for the record, Mrs. Whitfield, my mother has more class and dignity than you could ever hope to have, regardless of her bank account or social connections. Pride swelled in my chest at my daughter's words. The lost, tearful girl of yesterday was gone, replaced by a strong, principled woman. "I'll get my things now," Rebecca concluded. "And then we're leaving." Thomas followed her upstairs, leaving me alone with his parents. The silence was thick with tension. Finally, Harold spoke. "Mrs. Wilson, I want to apologize for my wife's actions. They were inexcusable." Victoria made a sound of disgust but said nothing. "Thank you," I replied to Harold. "But I'm not the one who lost the most here. Your son and my daughter could have been happy together, if given the chance." Harold nodded sadly. "Perhaps. But if their relationship couldn't withstand this test, maybe it wasn't meant to be." I thought about his words as I waited for Rebecca. Was he right? Had this terrible experience actually saved Rebecca from a lifetime of subtle manipulations and judgment? It was impossible to know. 20 minutes later, Rebecca returned with 2 large suitcases. Thomas trailed behind her, looking devastated. "Becca, please reconsider," he said as we prepared to leave. "I love you." Rebecca paused at the door. "I believe you do, Thomas. But sometimes love isn't enough. I need a partner who will stand with me, who values my family as his own." She looked at him with genuine sadness. "I hope you find what you're looking for." As we drove away from the mansion, Rebecca stared out the window, lost in thought. The confrontation had been necessary but painful. A chapter of her life was ending before it had truly begun. "Are you okay?" I asked when we were back on the highway. She turned to me with tear-filled eyes but a resolute expression. "No. But I will be." She reached for my hand. "We will be." The road stretched ahead of us, leading back to my modest home, our home for now. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since the wedding disaster, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had survived the worst. Together we would find our way forward. 6 months passed. The seasons changed, summer fading to fall surrendering to winter, and finally winter giving way to the first tender buds of spring. Through it all, Rebecca remained with me in her childhood home, the temporary arrangement gradually becoming something more permanent. The legal aftermath of the failed marriage had been surprisingly straightforward. Since the marriage had lasted less than a day and was unconsummated, Rebecca's lawyer had successfully filed for an annulment rather than a divorce. The Whitfields, perhaps out of guilt or simply to avoid scandal, had been generous in the settlement. Rebecca had received back her full share of wedding expenses plus a significant sum that allowed her time to rebuild her life without financial pressure. The emotional healing proved more challenging than the legal proceedings. In those first weeks, Rebecca had alternated between grief over what might have been and anger at the betrayal. She would wake crying in the night, and I would find her curled up with Mr. Buttons, looking like the little girl who had once come to me with scraped knees and broken toys. But gradually, day by day, she began to recover. She found a therapist who specialized in emotional manipulation and family dynamics. She reconnected with old friends who had fallen by the wayside during her relationship with Thomas. She began jogging in the mornings, something she had loved in college but abandoned when Thomas suggested it was unladylike. For my part, I faced my own healing journey. The public humiliation at the wedding had left deeper scars than I initially realized. I became anxious in social situations, always wondering if people were judging me, talking about me. Rebecca encouraged me to join her at therapy, and slowly I began to regain my confidence. Our relationship required healing too. The breach of trust when Rebecca had believed Victoria over me couldn't be erased overnight. There were difficult conversations, tears on both sides, moments when the pain felt too raw to move past. One evening in early April, as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset, Rebecca broached the subject that had been simmering beneath the surface. "Mom, I've been offered a job back in the city," she said tentatively. "Marketing director for a small sustainable fashion brand." My heart sank at the thought of her leaving, but I forced a smile. "That sounds perfect for you. When would you start?" "Next month." "But..." She hesitated. "I don't think I'm ready to live in the city again. Too many memories, too many chances of running into Thomas or his friends." I nodded understanding. "You could commute, I suppose, though it would be a long drive." "Actually," Rebecca said, "I was thinking of looking for a place halfway between. Somewhere we could both live." We. I repeated, surprised. These past months living together again. It's reminded me how much I missed you during those years when I was trying to become someone else for Thomas. She took my hand. I'm not suggesting we live together forever, but maybe for now while we're both still healing. Warmth spread through my chest. I'd like that. 2 weeks later we found a charming duplex in Stamford, close enough to New York for Rebecca's commute but not so far that I felt uprooted from the community I'd known for decades. Moving meant downsizing, which turned out to be unexpectedly liberating. Together we sorted through 40 years of accumulated possessions, keeping what truly mattered and letting go of the rest. Among the items I insisted on bringing was the diamond bracelet, my grandmother's bracelet that had inadvertently triggered the wedding disaster. One evening as we unpacked boxes in our new home, I found Rebecca staring at it, a troubled expression on her face. "What's wrong?" I asked. "This bracelet. Sometimes I wish we'd never seen it again. All the pain it caused." I sat beside her on the couch. "The bracelet didn't cause the pain, sweetheart. Victoria's actions did. And in a strange way, maybe it saved you from years of manipulation and unhappiness." Rebecca considered this. "I never thought of it that way. Sometimes the most painful moments lead us exactly where we need to be." I took the bracelet from her hands and fastened it around her wrist. "This has been passed down through generations of strong women in our family. Now it's yours again, a symbol not of what was lost, but of what was found. Our way back to each other." Tears shimmered in Rebecca's eyes, but they were gentle tears, healing tears. "I'm so sorry for what I put you through, Mom. For doubting you, for those terrible things I said. I know you are. And I've forgiven you. I meant it." The anger and hurt had gradually dissolved, replaced by a deeper understanding of human frailty, including my own. "But can I share something I've learned through all this?" Rebecca nodded. "Forgiveness isn't a single moment, a magical erasing of hurt. It's a process, a daily choice. There are still moments when the pain resurfaces, when I remember how it felt to be accused and rejected by my own daughter." I squeezed her hand to soften the words. "But each day I choose to focus on now, not then. On rebuilding, not reliving." "How did you get so wise?" Rebecca asked with a small smile. 67 years of making mistakes and learning from them," I replied. "And you're well on your way too." In the months that followed, Rebecca thrived at her new job. The small company valued her creativity and insight in ways her previous corporate position never had. She made new friends, joined a hiking club, started taking Spanish classes at the community college. Most importantly, she rediscovered herself, the authentic Rebecca who had been gradually suppressed during her relationship with Thomas. As for me, retirement took on new meaning. I volunteered at the local library, joined a book club, and even started dating again. Something I hadn't done in 20 years. Nothing serious, just dinner and conversation with age-appropriate men, who made me laugh and reminded me I was more than just Rebecca's mother. We never heard directly from Thomas again, though Rebecca occasionally received updates through mutual friends. He had eventually married a woman from his parents' social circle, a match his mother undoubtedly approved. I hoped he was happy, or at least that he had found some measure of independence from Victoria's manipulations. The holiday season brought our first major test, our first Thanksgiving and Christmas in the new place, without the shadow of Thomas and the Whitfields, but also without the comfort of long-established traditions. We decided to create new ones. For Thanksgiving, instead of cooking a traditional meal, we volunteered at a homeless shelter, serving dinner to those less fortunate. For Christmas, we took a small vacation to Vermont, just the two of us in a cozy cabin with a fireplace and unlimited hot chocolate. On Christmas Eve, as we sat before the fire, Rebecca presented me with a gift, a beautifully bound photo album. Inside were pictures of us throughout the years, from her infancy to recent photos in our new home. The final page held a letter, which she asked me to read aloud. "Dear Mom," I began, my voice already thick with emotion. "This year has taught me the true meaning of family. It's not about perfect holidays or expensive gifts or social standing. It's about the person who stands by you when everyone else walks away. The person who sees your flaws and loves you anyway. The person who forgives what seems unforgivable, because their love runs deeper than any hurt. You are that person for me, and I am eternally grateful. All my love, Rebecca." I closed the album, too moved to speak. Rebecca leaned her head against my shoulder, just as she had done as a child. I think I finally understand what you've been teaching me all my life, Mom. That love, real love, isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up day after day through the mess and the hurt and the joy. It's about choosing each other again and again. In that moment, sitting with my daughter in the warm glow of the fire, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me since the wedding disaster. The journey had been painful, the healing slow and imperfect, but we had arrived at a place of genuine understanding and renewed love. Sometimes life's greatest betrayals lead to its most profound blessings. Sometimes we must lose what we thought we wanted to find what we truly need. And sometimes the family we're born with or marry into isn't the family that sustains us. Sometimes we must create that family ourselves, building it with love, forgiveness, and the courage to begin again. If you've ever experienced betrayal from someone you loved, or if you've had to rebuild after a devastating loss, I hope our story gives you strength. Remember that healing isn't linear, forgiveness takes time, and new beginnings are possible at any age. Share your own stories of resilience in the comments below. Like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and remember, the strongest hearts are those that have been broken and mended with love. Thank you for listening, and may you find peace in your own journey forward.